You remember that we are looking at the very small details of implementation, and we will hear problems of implementation. We will hear a lot of them in the case studies. And you probably remember the implementation box. Our dreamland is some further success in the ICZM Protocol. It is very far off the ground, in a double sense of the word. The protocol is there remotely, but still very far from implementation on the ground. Those who have not seen this, for those, the implementation box has many surprises. This, I have not updated this from our first meeting a year ago, but I know many more implementation problems. This box says, wow, appropriate institutional body, that's a big well-known, and actual founders, these are well-known. Enactment of necessary regulations, yes. Recruitment of public support, yes, those are classics. No compensation rights, now we're getting into details. Countries have, along the Mediterranean, different rules about what happens with structures that are there already. Sea has changed, the coastline may have changed, the constitution may be implemented. Do they deserve compensation rights or not? If yes, who pays it? An issue that's there, not at all resolved. There should be no court challenges. Well, we know that just recently here in Greece, we've had a court challenge, and there are many. I will be meeting with the Ministry of Finance in Greece right after this conference, but we'll hear more from the Greek people. The courts play a very important role in the details of enforcement and non-enforcement. I had a meeting with the Ombudsman of Greece last July. Everybody understand that term? Is it Greek or Latin? Ombudsman? Greek or Latin? What? If it's not Greek, it's Latin. Thank you.
It's not Greek.
No, it's not Dutch. Okay, so it's a Latin term, and I met with the section of the National Ombudsman in charge of environmental and social affairs, and they are full of hundreds of complaints. But if people think that public participation is a one-way street, that is, public participation helps preserve the environment as a formula, all the complaints, except one or two, are from landowners rather than from public agencies. So do not dilute, shall we say, mottos like more public participation doesn't necessarily mean a good formula. Preparation approval statutory plan, huge issue across the Mediterranean. We're finding more, and we'll hear more from the case studies. Plans can be good, plans can also be bad in terms of the goals of better implementation of the ICZM Protocol. Efficient administrative culture, these are classics, decision bodies. Oh, exceptions and variances, yes. Should I go back a second? The question of exceptions and variances, a huge issue. So there is a building, what happens? Can it continue living? The illusion that buildings will disappear, the illusion is disappearing. Buildings are much slower to disappear than illusions. Do they get exceptions? Are they allowed to live on? I'm saying, and what happens with regulations that are okay, they're not illegal, they're not an amnesty? What happens when the sea changes or policies change? In terms of variances and exceptions. In general, in planning law across the world, a lot of planning decisions or permit decisions are done through variations and exceptions. Could be change of use from housing to commercial or and so on. It could be in addition to of a small part of the building, that a lot of decisions that are like that could also be exceptions, bigger exceptions to the plan. Land should be registered. Cadastral issues, that will be a huge issue when we hear about North Africa, I assume, and it is an issue in some of the Mediterranean countries, including Greece. Approval of budget, that's classic. Undertaking interinstitutional coordination. We all speak about better coordination. However, coordination among institutions is always a problem. Institutions are like people, they're individuals. So coordination is never full, and thinking about mechanisms of coordination does not mean that that happens instantly. There are a lot of variations. This is part of the things we should be looking at. Various modes of coordination in the various case studies. Political legal powers, that's great. Now, topics that I have learned through my own visits and interviews, the demarcation of the coastline issue. Coming from a country in Israel where the coastline is demarcated and doesn't move, I was surprised to find out about the floating coastlines. Some countries have determined non-static coastlines. Some countries, Spain is the most vividly floating and surfing coastline. Greece seems to be in the middle, and I'm really curious to hear about other countries. The floating coastlines, you all know that I was late because for 4.5 years we're taking care of a sick sister, and she's extremely sick now. So I checked to see who's calling. Doesn't seem to be from the hospital. This is why my mood is a bit not as jovial as I delayed my trip by 1 day, but it should be there in fact. The question of demarcation, it's a combination between cadastre and law, and following the demarcation is a huge issue that was not on this box with ideas. Other issues, the relationship between ports and urban plans, ports and coordination with Haifa, yes, Valencia, the issue of ports and cities and coasts, outside planning laws, within set planning laws, a big issue that we should look at. Tourism, not just, I'm not saying just as an economic, I mean, the obvious things are yes, tourism, classroom, yes. I'm talking about the regulation of tourism. That's a big issue that we should, we need to, I'm going to have to look at it a bit, had an initial meeting with the lawyer for the Tourism Authority Ministry in Greece a few months ago, and may have another one. It's an issue to look at. Regulation of transportation and coastline. Again, it's a classic to say, yes, roads, we're not looking in this project, we all know roads conflict with, growth conflicts with. We want to look at how the regulations work for or against and how they could be improved to find better balances between the conflicting demands from the coastline. So we have much more work to go. We also have been discovering, what some of you already know very well, and that is there are lots of projects about the Mediterranean coastline and the Mediterranean Sea, financed by the EU. There is one on transportation, there's one on tourism, there's one on jellyfish. I love their dissemination graphics. I love the jellyfish. I don't know about the fish, but the graphics of the fish. There are 12 or 14 currently active research projects or research and action projects about the Mediterranean. And the new call, I was told last November by the Sardinian people, the EU people, the new call will include more coastline regulation and coastline management. So yeah, there's a lot to draw on, but on the other hand, there's also, there's opportunities there, but I think also we're filling a very important hole in these because we're the only one who are looking for this entire web of activities and conflicts and research from the regulation and implementation perspective. Okay, the rest is what we already know. And okay, now I wanted to say a word about the relationship between what we're doing and environmental research, Giorgio especially, and others. This is a very important stratum basis for research to alert us about environmental degradation of all types. For us we're not going to research the environment, as you know, we all know, that's not our agenda, it's not our mission, it's not our call, it's not what we're financed to do. So we don't analyze, well, I should say before I go on that I attended a huge conference in Marmaris in Turkey in the end of October, beginning of November, where there were many hundreds of papers. There were many academics and many NGOs and various government or quasi-government, mostly NGOs and academics. Most of them were on environmental and environmental engineering issues. Despite this, I'm going to... I did a follow me, but it hasn't worked. I have a special phone for emergency so that this wouldn't happen. But the follow me hasn't succeeded. I'll have to ask my husband to do it again. Look up MedCoast. Giorgio, are you acquainted with that?
Yes.
Okay. I took along one of two very thick books with perhaps 600 pages each. And most of them looking at bioengineering issues, some looking at the types of topics, a minority looking at the types of topics we're addressing, but again, not from the perspective that we're addressing. So for us, these biochemical, biophysical, bioengineering issues along the coast are red lights, alert lights, that we need to look at and say, for example, Georgios was talking with Ranan about the depletion of fish. It's something we've heard before, and we know. Okay, we are not going to this project to ask, well, how to regenerate the fish community as a biogenetic or bio enterprise, but we're going to ask, are there issues along the coast that deteriorate the fish community? Is that something that should be a goal? Not necessarily. And if so, do regulations and property rights along the coast influence that? What we're also not really addressing, and others are addressing more and more, and that is marine planning. We're not doing the land use or the sea use determination of the marine areas because of the economic zones, and not so much, interestingly, in the western part of the Mediterranean. From what I understand, I know very little about it, but I do know that it's in the eastern part of the Mediterranean. For us Israelis, it's a real surprise, and we're used to being a country with absolutely no resources, and except phosphates. And all of a sudden, this bonanza of gas, with sharing Gaza, Israel, Cyprus, and Lebanon. And so these issues are prompting more thinking in that part. But in any case, marine planning, designation of areas of the sea as areas for preservation or areas for economic harvesting are not our mandate. We may look at the sea to an extent, but we're more focused on the coast. Okay, just to put us back on the same page as the Americans like to say. Any thoughts, questions? So what's going to be the agenda? Who's any Georgia's? Say no, say something.
All right. Next point before lunch will be Georgia.